we have Ms. Iliyana Stareva, the Global Partner Program Manager of HubSpot. She lives and breathes inbound marketing and also PR for agencies. She spent 3 years in the PR industry across Germany and the UK, establishing presence of some of the largest FMCG brands in the world in those markets. So, dear digital marketers, now we have Ms. Iliyana Stareva to enlighten us on digital storytelling and future marketing. Ms. Stareva, the platform is all yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Iliyana. Thank you so
Okay.
much for the introduction, and thank you so much also for having me today. I'm very, very excited. This is going to be great. I'll talk to you about a specific new topic with regards to the future of digital storytelling, and that's namely going to be inbound PR. I work at HubSpot. HubSpot is an American company. We invented the inbound marketing methodology years ago, and we offer marketing, sales, and service software around it. So that's going to be my topic today. I plan to give you a lot of tips and tricks as well on how you can go and implement and create a very targeted inbound PR storytelling campaign. Okay, so before I get on with some of the slides that I have, I want to make sure that I give you a little bit of an overview of who I am and why you should be listening to me today and why I have a lot of stuff to tell you. Now, I currently am Global Partner Program Manager at HubSpot. We have a partner program of digital agencies from across the world that I manage at the moment. And before that, I spent about 3 years working in PR agencies across Germany and the UK. So I spent a lot of time creating stories and telling stories on behalf of clients. And after that, I became an agency business consultant at HubSpot about 3.5 years ago. So I work with over 200 agencies from across the EMEA region to help them grow their businesses with us. And earlier this year in April, I published my first book about inbound PR, targeted specifically at agencies. And I'm going to share a lot of the learnings and key insights from that book with you today. So the agenda that we'll run through covers a couple of key topics. Why is PR or the current PR storytelling at the moment broken, in my opinion? How can inbound as a methodology and thinking and philosophy help? And then at the end, as I said, I'll give you some very, very practical tips on creating an inbound PR campaign to tell your digital stories. All right, let's get started. So why do I believe inbound is broken? That's the first topic we'll cover. Now, I assume that there are people in the room who don't come from a PR background. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we're all on the same page with an understanding of what PR is and what it entails. So as with anything, we'll start with a textbook definition. So if you go to university and study PR communications, this is what you hear. People will tell you that public relations, or PR, is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations, companies, and their publics or audiences. Now, if you look at that, this comes from the Public Relations Society of America, which is probably the biggest PR body in the world. It doesn't really tell you much, right? Like, it is hard to understand what exactly does PR do. So I want to show you another definition that doesn't come from a professional PR body or a PR professional. And it says that advertising is basically saying that you're good, whereas public relations is getting someone else to say that you're good, to rave about your business. Now that makes a little bit more sense, right? Now for years, that's what the goal of PR has been, to really create those stories and to have other people, and particularly the media, tell those stories about your brands. And with the digital world, obviously, that's gone online as well. So many people believe that the only thing that PR people do is really to work with those journalists or people who work in the radio and TV and basically place your stories. So to pitch them press releases with certain stories and then make sure that you get those in the media. We call this media relations. So for many years, PR has been synonymous with media relations. Now, I believe this is false. This is now no more relevant and true simply because the media has evolved. So we no longer read newspapers and magazines and so on as much as we used to. I don't even watch TV, for example, and I know of a lot of other people who don't either. So with digital, the media has evolved. Now we have four different types of media for which PR should be responsible. It shouldn't be just responsible for the realm of earned media or media relations, where we work with those journalists and those influencers. We also have the so-called shared media, that's social media, that's Facebook and Twitter and so on, where a lot of us are active on. We also have paid media, that includes, for example, Facebook paid advertising or LinkedIn advertising, but really those channels that allow you to amplify the effect of your digital stories and place them in front of the people that needs to hear from you. And then, of course, what's grown hugely in importance over the last few years, and also because of the inbound movement, is owned media. Now, owned media are the channels that you own and have full control of. That's your website, that's your own blog. Those are basically all of your profiles and channels that you own for your online presence. So PR, as much as it has been about media relations, it must evolve to ensure that it covers all the other media types, because this is how people want to be communicated at. This is how people want to receive stories. Now, what happens though is traditional PR, or really the focus particularly on media relations only, is very much outbound. What we call outbound is the type of media or stories or content that companies push at people. So they interrupt your flow. So that might be a direct message, a direct call, direct advertising, anything that's not part of your own, so to say, research or information consumption process. So it doesn't really attract you, right? And I've also read a research recently which said that I believe in the US, journalists, for example, receive 1,600 press releases in their email inboxes every day. That's an amazing amount of information that they just ignore. So they prefer to find things on their own, to do it the inbound way, something that attracts them. So in this sense, really I believe that PR needs to reinvent itself, because it needs to evolve to the way the media and to the way we ourselves have evolved. We need to change the way we think about and we do about PR, and we need to change the way we do PR. This is a constant debate that's happening in the PR industry. And I believe that inbound has an extremely big role to play when it comes to reinventing how we do PR and digital storytelling with PR online. So let's look at why inbound can help. As a reminder, we said that inbound is really about pulling people in. So rather than pushing messages at them with the traditional and old methods, we attract them through our own content and our own channels. So what we know about PR people for sure is that they are the best storytellers. PR people, when they go to university, they study communication. They study storytelling. So they can take a very tiny news bit and turn it into a very big piece and very interesting story that can be relevant for you and you can be interested in. So PR people really do study this whole storytelling technique, and then also writing. That's one of the key skills required out of PR people. Now, what the problem is though with that type of PR knowledge is that a lot of people in PR don't really focus on finance or metrics. And this has been the single biggest challenge with PR and as an industry over the last 100 years or even longer since its existence. PR people are not, and businesses are not sure how to measure PR. And PR is often associated with just vanity metrics in terms of reach, which doesn't really tell you what the ROI is for your business. Now, if you look at inbound though as a methodology, it starts with the numbers in mind. And I'll show you a little bit later on, you'll see that. Inbound really is all about the measurement. Every step that you take with inbound, it has a metric, it has a purpose, it has a goal, so that it drives return on investment, so that all of your efforts are worth it. Now, inbound PR then is all about combining the strength of PR, which is all about content and storytelling, and the strength of inbound marketing, which is really all about that measurement piece. So for those of you that are not really familiar with inbound marketing, and in its essence also inbound PR, this might be a little bit small on your screens, but this is what the two methodologies are about. We have at the top inbound marketing. I'll run you through the bottom of inbound PR. They're very similar, so I suggest for you to just look at the bottom part. So initially what we are aiming to do with through digital and online content and storytelling is really to attract people who are strangers to our business. So the way we do that is we use blog posts, and obviously we optimize them for search engines. We use social media and publishing so that we get different types of audiences there and generally promote the content. In this instance, in PR, we can also use our press releases. They're an important instrument, but they just need to be a little bit more targeted. Once we do that and we've attracted certain people, certain stakeholders, be them customers or media people, it doesn't matter. PR really works through all the stakeholder groups. They essentially become visitors to our website and our business. They start to learn more about us. And hopefully they start to get more interested. So we can surface even better and more targeted content, more detailed content for them, where they can convert on a landing page. They can give us their email address, and for that, they might receive an ebook or a report or a webinar to watch. And this can also be a big part in newsrooms. So your company could have a newsroom specifically designed for the media, and there, media people can find that type of resources and engage with you. Now, once we've achieved that, we essentially have our leads, right? These are contacts that we know, and in some shape or form, they've had contact and engagement with our business and our online content. Now, after that, we want to continue engaging with them, and this is where we make that a little bit more personalized. We use social media to do so. We use emails. We can automate a lot of that. We do some events potentially. We can do exclusive interviews and so on that we offer if we're talking about journalists here. And ideally, then, we turn these people into publishers. They write stories in the digital world for us. And we continue engaging with them, right? Because we want to build a fruitful relationship that continues on and on. So we share their content, we engage with it, we create inbound links through each of our websites. We use even more social monitoring to see the other things they're writing about and rave about them as well. So that way we build relationships, as I said, and we turn them into repeat publishers. So this is overall the methodology, just to give you an understanding of how it has a couple of different steps there, and they're all important because they build up on each other. So you start from scratch, and then you aim at a specific result, and you have tools and tactics to guide you through that. So now I want to get to the part which gets very, very practical with all the tips on how you can do inbound PR and apply this to your digital storytelling and generally your digital marketing as well for an additional push. When it comes to building an inbound PR campaign, there are 8 essential steps. I cover them in my book in a lot of detail. I've summarized everything here for you, and we'll go through them in a little bit more detail. It all starts with setting goals. You want to know your stakeholder personas, so I'll explain what these are. Of course, also their journey or decision-making journey. You want to make sure you have a solid content and storytelling plan. You want to know how you're going to promote those stories online or through doing inbound media relations. You want to nurture those leads, and then at the end, you want to measure those results. Now, I'm going to use a lot of examples with regards to media people. I'm going to tell you why in a second. However, as with any campaign, whether that's marketing, PR, storytelling, anything that you're really doing for your business, you need to know why you're doing it. That all happens with setting proper business goals that are very high level in terms of the revenue that you're hoping to achieve. Because at the end of the day, all of this is cost for your business and an investment. So you want to know that it's worth it. So if you start with your high level goals and then identify, well, why are we doing an inbound PR campaign right now? What are we trying to achieve? How much should PR generate for us in terms of ROI, in terms of sales or improvement in thought leadership, and so on and so forth? You really want to nail those goals in the first place, because if you don't know why you're doing this, you're not going to be able to identify the right tactics to hit those goals. And then of course you're not going to be able to measure it. There's a reason why we have measurement at the end of this list of 8 key steps. It is because we want to close the loop. We want to know that we've hit the goals that we set up in the beginning very consciously, and we define tactics to hit it, and we define also ways to measure them. So I said that I deliberately am going to focus on media people and media personas. And there's a really key term in inbound marketing that we use called buyer personas. Buyer personas are the ideal clients that you want to work with as a business. Now, with PR, what's very unique is that PR can work through every possible stakeholder persona, as I call it. It can be the buyers, or direct customers, clients. It can be media people and bloggers and influencers. It can be even investors and so on. So there are a lot of different realms within PR. You need to know who you're dealing with and who you're aiming to, because once you define your goals, it may be so that you want to target different personas. So depending on your goals, you may have to run different campaigns, one for the buyers, one for the media personas, for example. So what this means is that you always need to do your research. That's something that a lot of companies fail at, unfortunately. We tend to make assumptions and jump into action instead of digging in and really understanding our potential customers, the media people we want to work with, and who also want to work with us. So it really comes down to doing proper surveys and doing research and speaking to people and understanding their needs, because then we can cover them through our stories. We will actually understand and uncover what type of information, content, and stories they want to receive. So I want to give you examples of how you could structure some surveys or interviews so that you can do that type of research and really define your personas. Now here you can compare the typical buyer persona, the customers and clients, versus the media persona. Again, I'll just focus on the media persona since we spoke about media early on. But really what you want to know is, who are those journalists, influencers, bloggers, YouTubers that could have an interest in your business? What does a day in their life look like? Do they travel a lot? Do they work in a busy office? You really want to know their habits. You want to know how they want to be contacted. I'm an influencer myself. I have a blog, and if you try and email me on my personal email, I'll receive a lot there, so I'll probably not ignore you. But if you send me a quick tweet with a little pitch and explanation on how you want to collaborate with me and create a story together, then I might be like, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. Why don't you send me all the details on my email? And then I'll see a familiar name there, and I'll actually open that email. So this is important to know. Now, a few more questions for you to ask is, how do these people do research when they create stories? When I work on my next article for my blog, typically what I do is I obviously Google. I want to make sure that I have facts. I want to make sure that I have reports. That aligns with the second question. What do people need when they write stories? Do they need other influencers? Do they want to do interviews? Do they need the stats and the data? We really want to know that so that you can support your stories with the right type of information that your readers expect. And then also you want to know what challenges people are facing when they're working on those stories. For me, a challenge is time. So I might be very stretched for time, or I might have a need where I need to publish tomorrow in 24 hours. Can you be really that agile and give me all the information that I need? These are all questions that you need to answer so that you can build proper stakeholder personas and their profiles. Now, to elevate those profiles even more, you want to define people's stakeholder journeys. Again, in inbound marketing, we have the so-called buyer persona journey, which is the decision-making process someone goes through to deciding to actually buy from you or work with you. So again, I'll show you the example of how this relates to a buyer and a media. And whoever it is, any stakeholder persona goes through a typical process to make a decision, from awareness to consideration to decision. Awareness is typically when you realize that you have some sort of problem or a need. In this case, you need to write a story, for example, for next week. Once you start considering what the topics are and the ideas are, you start digging in a little bit more. You look at your old resources, you look online on Google, you look at what other people are writing, you look at some companies and so on. So you really do a proper research there, and you consider what are your best options. You narrow those down into a list of the top ones. And then once you have those, what you really want to do is obviously make a decision and say, all right, out of these 5 top potential stories, I want to work on this story, and out of the 10 influencers or companies that I found to support it, I want to make sure that I reach out to 1, 2, 3 of those. So what you're trying to achieve here is you want to be part of that decision and research making journey. The way you're going to do that is obviously now you have very clear persona profiles. You have identified their stakeholder journey. So what you can do here is you can create the content or the stories that are going to hit each of those decision-making steps. Now, the way you do that is through a proper content plan. Believe me, through my experience, a lot of people do this the wrong way around. They just come up with some cool ideas for blog posts and publish them, and then they figure out how to promote them and whether they really work and so on. You want to be very strategic with all of this, and that's why it's no wonder that I started with personas, their journey, and I'm coming to a content plan. So you've done a lot of research there, you have a lot of information, and then you can start developing content per persona and per stage. So you can define certain keywords for each of those stages. Ideally, I advise starting with just one stage first to create a content or storytelling campaign. Once you have a key question there, then you can define a type of a content offer. Content offer can be an ebook, a webinar, an event like this, even so, where you want people to convert somewhere so that you have their contact details, or you want them even to pay for it. And then ideally what you want to do after is to figure out ways to promote those content offers. And that happens through your blog posts, where you can put call to actions to lead to that content offer on a landing page. You can use your press releases and do media relations, as we'll talk about later. You can use your newsroom as well to make sure you get some SEO out of that too. So really the whole thought process here is a little bit backwards and a lot more strategic than what a lot of people are doing. Where it gets tricky though is you can create a lot of stories and content online, but unless you promote it properly, no one is probably going to consume it, unfortunately. So there's just a lot of noise out there. That's the information era that we live in. Everyone can create content. Not all content is great. Not all content is created equal. But you really need to put thoughtful effort into identifying the right audience and making sure that you use the channels that they prefer to consume. So I use a really cool graphic here from SpinSucks. They're a peer agency from Chicago in the States. And they give a lot of ideas, and those ideas can be helpful because could give you thoughts on how you can repurpose certain stories. So obviously you can use your different types of media. We have them again. You can use your earned media with influencer relations. Perhaps maybe someone on Instagram as an influencer could be a better option than paid advertising, for example, if you want to do some Facebook ads. You obviously want to use your social channels or the channels of other people, and you can very easily convert a number of blog posts or even an ebook into a short video or an infographic. It's a different type of content that you own that you can spread across social networks. You'd be surprised. I, for example, read a lot of books and summarize them in infographics, which are shared on Pinterest. And this is the highest social network traffic that I receive. It's not Twitter, it's not LinkedIn, it's not Facebook. It really is Pinterest that drives the most traffic to my own blog. Now, once you do that, as I said, one of the ideas here to promote content is through media relations or working with influencers and journalists. A lot of people don't do this well. They just create a massive list of, say, for example, 500 names, 500 journalists and bloggers there, and just mass email them press releases. It's really the bad way of doing it. And, out of those 500 people, you may get, if at all, 5 that might click. But really what you should be doing is come up with a smaller list, maybe 25 of them, but ensure that 20 of them are actually going to cover your story. So that happens by being a lot more thoughtful. As you can see, a lot of themes here are repeating themselves, but you want to research them. You want to get to know them as if they're your friends. You want to get creative with your outreach. I said earlier, I prefer people to reach out to me on Twitter rather than my email. You don't want to over spam it. Unfortunately, I get email pitches and then probably 5 follow-ups within a week. If I'm not responding, I'm clearly not interested and don't have the time. The other thing too is to make sure that you create really good content and use stories. This is where the whole digital storytelling piece comes into play. A lot of people prefer very short videos or images that are a lot more engaging than text. So press releases don't always have to be that dry. And you also need to make sure that you use your own media. So if I want to cover someone for a story, I'm going to ensure that they actually have interesting content on their website. If nothing's happening on your website or on your social platforms, I won't consider you as a serious business just because we live in that type of digital era where everyone's creating stories online. And you also want to make sure that it's easy for you to reach out to. It's easy for them to reach out to you. You should ideally have a media type of contact on your website. And as I said earlier, you want to continue building a relationship. So you want to share their content and comment on it, and not just the stuff they write about you, but other pieces. Now, what can speed up a lot of your efforts is to create a newsroom specifically designed for those media people. I've researched this a lot, and it primarily is the big names and players that have really good newsrooms, and not a lot of people invest in it. But I do think it's a quite great channel. I've heard a lot of good feedback from people who've implemented something like this, where you create, similarly to how a lot of websites have a downloads page, where you have summarized all of the ebooks or blog posts that you have. Essentially, you're creating the same go-to resource, but this one is specifically designed for media people. And as I said, I've researched this a lot for my book, and I've identified 16 key pieces that an inbound PR newsroom has. Now, the idea here is that one, you save yourself time and journalist time because you can directly point them into something, or even better, they could find it on their own because that newsroom is going to be live, it's going to live on your website, and ideally it's going to be also optimized for search engines. So with time, you're going to start getting traffic from it. So you want to have your press releases there as well as listed recent coverage. And make sure that if you've done any researches or studies and white papers, ebooks, you want to have them listed there, obviously. If you've written any guest posts, you want to have them there too. Anything about your business, your product, your services, fact sheets, guides, stuff like that, you want to have them easily foundable, plus the case studies and testimonials around them. You want to make sure that you have any interviews or videos with important people from your company, podcasts or webinars or events that you may have hosted, or any upcoming speaking events from prominent people from your company. Online media kits, generally FAQs, company information, investor relations as well. Very important too, lots of imagery. It's really hard actually as a journalist or influencer to find good material for a business, so it's good to have a gallery of sorts. And of course, as I said, you want to have a PR contact specifically. If people want to reach out for more information, then there's someone there to do so instead of just a blank form and who knows where that's going to go to. And finally, you also want to make sure you have the RSS feeds for all those, for all that information so that people can subscribe and get updates. And at the end too, you want to have a search function or sort function of sorts. You really want to make sure that the architecture of that page is well designed because people may want to dig on their own. And with time, you're going to generate more and more stories and content. So you really want to have that structured easily. Now, if you think about all the stuff we've done so far, we have our personas, we have their journey, we have content, we have ways to promote that content through various digital channels. Now, what you also want to do is obviously use the power of email because it is still a powerful tool when it's done right. Because those people you've engaged with, they're obviously already meet the leads. They've in some shape or form engaged with your content. They've converted somewhere. So you want to design lead nurturing journeys for them. So with lead nurturing, the idea is that you continue providing them valuable content based on certain triggers, based on their past experience with you, based on the past content they've consumed. So you need to know all of that, ideally through software. So you can send them, say for example, they have read an awareness stage ebook. Now is the time for you to give them the consideration stage webinar, for example, to listen into. So you can easily do that through an email 3 days after they read the ebook. Now it's time for them to receive the webinar. So that can happen through lead nurturing, and this can work really well as well for media leads as long as you've defined it and structured it well. And at the end, as I said, we are reverting back to the measuring of results. In those results, we really want to nail them down based on the goals that we set in the beginning. Hugely important. A lot of PR people unfortunately don't use the data, even though the data is there, even though there are a lot of tools there to do that. Google Analytics is a fantastic tool for you to master, to know how your website is performing, how your stories are performing. There are other types of software for PR specialists in particular, for example, Prowly, when it comes to managing a media database and contacts, it's really great for you to do so because it's a CRM and you can communicate with journalists there and you can track how many of those outreaches turn into actual stories. Really good software there. And overall, you really want to think differently. You really want to think with outcomes in mind, not just outputs. And what we mean by that is not just the tactics, not just the things that you're going to do, but really what you want to achieve there, as we've said in the beginning. So you want to set your objectives. You want to see what you're going to do in terms of tactics to hit all of that and activities. And then at the end, you want to measure the impact. Now here you can see a screenshot of a really cool tool that I recommend for you to check out. You can Google it very easily. It's Amex Interactive Integration Framework. It's an online tool, it's free, and it's basically a really cool way for you to not just measure, but create an entire campaign. So you see here there are 7 key steps on the screenshot, and each one of them, when you click on it, it'll guide you with questions. You can fill it out. We have a PDF at the end, like you've got all the information in one page. Really, really, really good thing. So to close this off, I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways. I think by now you probably understand how PR needs a new approach and how inbound PR can be this new approach because it allows to combine PR's biggest strength around content and storytelling and then inbound's biggest strengths to measuring things because we are thinking with the numbers and the outcomes in mind, not just the outputs. We're planning with business goals and business objectives. And then there are 8 key steps that you need to run an inbound PR storytelling campaign that range from defining your stakeholder personas in their decision-making journey, creating content that's relevant to them, promoting it through the relevant channels for them, again, through that could be earned with media relations, where a newsroom plays a huge role. It could be social media and so on, or it could be email through nurturing. And then at the end, you want to close the loop. You want to make sure you measure the results. You want to learn from that as well. You want to know what works, what doesn't, so that you can do it better next time and you can have your online stories spread a lot better for the people you're trying to reach. So that's it at my end. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. I'm online everywhere on Twitter, LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'd love to stay in touch after this.
Yeah, that was great, Iliyana. To know more about our inbound PR activities and differentiating between the media persona, and so thank you so much.